Ja, herzlich willkommen zurück. Welcome back here on the stage, and a warm welcome at that point to Keiken Collective, a London, Berlin-based collective from which the next input talk comes from. So Keiken is a collective which is known for its hybrid art practices, which often involve moving images, virtual and augmented realities. The goal of their projects is to question the boundaries of experiences and embrace otherness. And they do this by creating artistic experiences with quite an immersive design, one could say, and by imagining and proposing new emancipatory technologies which simulate at the same time new structures and ways of existing. So the topic of the input talk does not come as a surprise, I would say. It's called Virtual Environments from Augmented Realities to NFTs, creating the Metaverse. Yes, and at this point, I'm very excited for the input.
Hi.
Hi, great to have you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. How are you?
Great. I hope you're fine too.
Good, thanks.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
So I think we're just going to start sharing the screen in a second.
is it sharing?
Yeah, I think it's just loading. Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, thank you, Katja, for the introduction. I guess we can just say a little bit more about ourselves as well. So, I'm Tanya and this is Hana, but we also work with Isabel, who isn't here with us today, but she's here in spirit. So yeah, we create gamified experiences and we're based between London and Berlin. And Keiken is actually named after experience which is a Japanese word, and it's kind of been something that's been really fundamental to our practice since the very beginning, and it's really kind of underpinned the way that we approach making work and thinking about work as well.
So together we kind of create these speculative worlds. We're really interested in building this metaverse, and later on we'll kind of explain a bit more what our definition of the metaverse means. But it's really about like how do we get there and what kind of existences and experiences could we have. And I guess another really important part of our practice is which completely encompasses the word experience, but also this idea of like a metaverse is constantly questioning reality and like looking at dissolving it, like being able to see it differently. And then I guess we create in lots of different mediums. So whether that is like films, games, installations, or gamified performances, or whether that is working with startups with new technologies, or creating our own technologies, or just working with existing technologies. Should I go on to the next bit?
Yeah, so we're just going to show you some images and things from some recent projects of ours. So what you can see here is a image from a performance that we did with Nama Ityal for 3HD last year, which was at HOW in Berlin. The piece is called The Metaverse Womb, and it was a live motion capture performance where Nama, the performer, was kind of like animating 3 avatars in the virtual environment behind her. So you can kind of see in the picture down in the corner there.
And then this was also whilst it was being streamed live, it was also directly being, it's like made into a 360 video as well, so that you can experience it in VR or something. Or whatever you'd like. This is a new project which we'll talk about in more detail in a little bit, which is this haptic wearable womb that we've created. And at the moment we've been it's kind of like in its beta stages where we're really trying to figure out how to create this like haptic experience where you're where I guess like you the way that your body and your mind connects sound and feeling is from the center of your belly, which is like a very different way of, I guess, like experiencing information or knowledge. So we're going to talk about it more, so I guess I can just move on, right?
Yeah, I think so. We'll cover it in a bit more detail a bit later on. So this image is actually, it's a CAD, so it's like a 3D render of an installation that's upcoming for Thailand Biennale, which opens in December 2021. And the piece is called Wisdoms for Love 3.0, which is, originally it was an online play.
One second, just Tan. I don't know if, just let us know in the conversation if the sound keeps dipping in and out, because
yes.
Because just because, like, for me, your voice just goes from not hearing till hearing, and I don't know if it's like that for anyone else, but just like let us know if that's like that for anyone else, just so that they can hear properly.
Okay, yes, please let us know, and then I'll also mute and unmute myself I'll mute myself when you're talking, Hannah, because I think that will help things too. So yeah, going back to this work, it was originally an online multiplayer game that we made, and we've kind of, I guess it's evolved into a physical installation now, a physical immersive installation where you can see in the background there's this big projection screen, which is where you see the game being played, and then right in front there's like a little iPad stand, which is where a member of the audience can come up to it and begin interacting and playing the game. And directly in the front, you'll actually, I'm not sure if you can really tell in this image, but there's a pool of water in front of the projection screen, which has these reflections, and kind of nested inside the water is a sculpture of the map of the game. So it's the map of the journey, the different journeys that you can take. And the sculpture kind of lights up to show which journey you've taken. And then in the corner there's this other projection of a animatic poster which has the different wisdom tokens that you collect as you play the game. But we're actually going to go into a little bit more detail about the game a bit later on, because we wanted to talk a bit more about NFTs.
So this is it in another context as well at HEC. Unfortunately, we don't have like good images of it yet, but we're really interested in creating these like almost like the reinventing how you can experience gaming. So like the idea is that you kind of, not only do you feel like, because you're inside the water, it's like you feel like you're kind of immersed inside the game experience, but also it's like about having this kind of relax, like even though you might go through like an emotional journey, it still has this essence of being more connected to nature with the water, and also being more kind of relaxed as well when you experience the gaming.
Yeah, exactly. So this piece was a live motion capture performance at the ICA in London from 2 years ago. Well, no, 2 years ago now, called Feels 360. And we actually worked with a startup company to kind of, I guess, it was the first debut of their technology, and actually because we were working with them up till this process, we essentially kind of helped them develop some of the like functions of some of the functions and the tools of their plugin. And basically what their plugin does is it enables us to do a live 360 stream from a gaming engine to Facebook, which is what we did in this context. And the plugin actually allows any audience's interactions on Facebook to the live stream. So that would be either liking it or giving it a heart or a kind of thumbs down or whatever. Any of those interactions actually trigger a change in the virtual environment.
So if you
So-
see the emojis in the projection, those emojis fill up, and once it's full, because of all the different, because of all the taps that people press on it, each time it starts to fill up. And once you've collectively like filled up that emoji, and a change in the environment will happen in real time. So not only can the audience members in the space affect the environment in real time, but also people from all over the world. So for example, somebody was on Facebook and wasn't in that space, but they're in Marrakesh, and they were making the changes in the environment in the theatre, which I think is kind of interesting. But yeah.
Definitely. So this next work was
Film My Metaverse.
It was a film installation of our film My Metaverse. So as you can see, it's a 3-channel piece, and the image that Hannah is showing now is another photograph of it in an installation at Frankfurter Kunstverein in Frankfurt. And this film, we made it 2 years ago now, but it's kind of a how to describe it? I've forgotten the like main line that we always say.
I think the thing was like, so the storyline was that Alipay disseminated life units due to climate change. So what happened is kind of it feels a bit like what happened with COVID in lockdown. But the idea was that because of climate change, those sudden like changes that happened so quickly, that Alipay disseminated these life units so that people could live in the metaverse instead. And then it was like exploring like what happens when you live in the metaverse and you have multiple bodies. So you exist in multiple bodies. We were we still are, but we spoke to and we did a lot of research looking at the substrate autonomous body, and we were looking at what happens when you occupy multiple bodies at the same time, which could be a possibility in the metaverse. And then through that, we were also exploring like what happens with inequality in the metaverse, what happens to climate change, what happens if people live in the metaverse but the earth becomes a commodity and that only certain people can access the earth and you can't leave your room. And so we're just kind of speculating all these potential possibilities, but at the same time we were also exploring like what happens if you live in a metaverse that you created yourself, and you learn through your senses and through embodiment. So we were really thinking about both the emancipatory and the kind of possible structures that exist on the earth that could be brought into the metaverse that could be so much more exponentially complicated than we can imagine even on the earth, if that makes sense. Yeah
it does. So then this is an image from an installation that we had at Tokyo Photography Museum last year, and the work was called Augmented Empathy, and it was kind of a augmented reality installation where you can see the person sitting in front of this kind of vanity style mirror, but actually when they sit in front of it, it activates this augmented reality experience. So it kind of it adds these kind of reflections onto the person's face, and it has these other kind of 3D objects that float around it. And you can't see so well in this image, but you can see kind of just to the left of the person, or to the right, sorry, there's a small makeup palette. And rather than having eyeshadow or lip stuff inside of the palette, we actually put these 16 different QR codes. So you can the audience can kind of sit down in front of this mirror, but they can also get their phone out and scan the QR codes to activate 16 other augmented reality experiences. So I suppose again we with the augmented reality, we're also kind of exploring how technology can be used as an emancipatory tool, especially when it comes to your identity and how you can kind of change your appearance, and kind of exploring how we can move beyond the boundaries of the physical.
Mm-hmm. And it's also just this idea of changing the way your avatar looks is as kind of seamless and normal as changing your clothes every day.
Yeah, exactly.
And then here we're going to just talk a little bit about how we've been exploring the NFT space, but also like our like kind of like thoughts on the blockchain. Well,
Yeah, so it's actually, these are kind of screenshots from the game Wisdoms for Love 3.0. So you'll remember that was one of the first, I think the second, no, the third work that we showed you. So you can actually play this game online. I don't know if I'll add the link into the chat later on so you can all access it. But essentially, yeah, it's an online decision-making game, which is a non-fungible or NFT collectibles project. So it was made in collaboration with coders and artists Obsolete, and the CG was made with Ryan Vautier. And we also worked on it with model, dancer, and activist Sakima Crook. So the way it kind of operates is that players, or you, the individual, have to work your way through a labyrinth of metaphorical decisions. And each time you make a decision, that decision is kind of like punctuated or kind of you get to kind of see what happens when you've made that decision. Like the consequence of it is shown in these different cutscenes, which are filled with symbolic imagery and sounds, which kind of direct the player to understanding which path they've taken. So as you move through the game, the players collect these things called wisdom tokens, and wisdom tokens are basically just digital artworks of the objects inside of the game. So the game also features live chat. So I think you can see in the bottom, in the left-hand image, in the bottom. Oh no, also in the right-hand image, you can see the chat. I don't know, maybe Hannah, if you want to just mouse over it so the audience can see. But yeah, so you can just basically communicate to other players at the same time to maybe, I don't know, maybe you want to kind of figure out where someone else is in the game, or you're struggling to make a decision, you can open up a conversation. So you can also view the map of the game, so you can see that in the image in the right hand side, there's this kind of pattern that's kind of enlarged. And the map just details the different potential pathways, and also it shows the location of other online players. The game, when you play online, also features an unlockable bonus level. So now we're gonna I don't know, Hannah, we can either play the next slide, which is a video demo of the game, or we can move on, it depends.
So I guess we have to, maybe because we have less than
15 minutes.
around
Maybe
10 minutes left.
Yeah, maybe we won't show that, but anyway, I just explained basically everything the video showed, so you're not really missing too much. So as players kind of move through the game, they're collecting these things called wisdom tokens, and these are actually free artworks that can be downloaded at the end of a player's gameplay session. So during the game, at any time, you can click download, and then the players will receive a zip file which has their assigned username. So actually, when you start playing the game, you're given a unique generative username. And so the zip file of your wisdom tokens, it kind of remembers your name, and it downloads all the tokens that you personally have collected. So inside this digital package that you get, there's an animatic poster and a still poster, which you can see in the corner of this Hannah's screen sharing now, and it has all of the individual wisdom tokens, so you can kind of see I wasn't able to collect that one, or I wonder which level this one was in. Maybe I should go back and play it to see. And the digital package also contains a moral contract, which details all of the tokens that they've collected. And basically, the moral contract kind of binds the user in a moral exchange with us, rather than a financial one. And this kind of model was made and conceptualized with our good friend and artist, Susanna Pettigrew. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to explain a little bit more about NFTs, if for those who maybe aren't so familiar with them or need a kind of brush up, that an NFT is a non-fungible token, and it's a unique digital token that serves as proof of ownership of an asset. So it also cannot be replicated. NFTs use blockchain technology, and this creates kind of a digital record of all transactions related to the NFT and across a vast network of computers. So what we're really doing with this work, I guess, or what we were doing, is we were considering wisdom as a tool for growth and change, and kind of proposing it as a form of currency to transact with that could actually be applied to the blockchain and integrated into future Web 3.0 technologies. And I suppose it's kind of thinking about how can we create alternative definitions of wealth for the game of the earth. So money is really like a transactional tool, and we're always chasing numbers for survival and for success. It's the kind of the only way that we can maneuver through the system, and money itself affects how, like, to what capacity we can actually move through it. But I guess what we're really questioning is what happens if we use the blockchain to store nuanced and ephemeral forms of value, or ephemeral forms of value and mediums of exchange.
Yeah, so I guess like one thing, this idea of like wisdoms on the blockchain, it's like, oh, maybe there's like a way of creating a value or a system that values wisdom and stores wisdom and can actually exchange wisdom, and also preserve it for the future generations to come. So, and we feel that things like wisdom could be preserved onto the blockchain and actually have like, if it did have some level of like financial value or like some sort of like movement exchange, then could it mean that the way we actually play the game on the earth, or the way that we maneuver on the earth, creates different structures or ways of existing? And then now we're going to kind of try to quickly explain our definitions on the metaverse and what we mean about the metaverse, because often, I guess I'll just read it because it's easier. But often the metaverse is like it's like a buzzword. It's been coming more into the mainstream, obviously, with what you call it, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg marking his territory with Meta. And so in our practice, we're constantly asking ourselves different questions about what is a metaverse, and how do we get there? Is the metaverse a 3D virtual world inhabited by avatars of real people? Is it something to do with NFTs? Is it buying virtual land that is awesome rather than fills your body with a sense of inner peace? Is it a parallel universe growing through our collective minds? Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio states in The Strange Order of Things, feelings have not been given the credit they deserve as motives, monitors, and negotiators of cultural human endeavors, and it is feelings that motivate us to build, to invent, and to create all artifacts and instruments of culture. Damasio argues that the root of what we build is based on how we feel. So how do we feel right now? How do we feel as a society, a culture? Do we feel free, excited, hopeful, balanced? Or do we feel frustrated, anxious, resentful, and divided? Do we feel with our whole body rather than just in our mind? It is healthy to feel an array of emotions. However, we often place hierarchy on which emotions are good or bad, positive or negative. But what about the safety and awareness of our feelings? And how do we expel and enfold inside oneself and one another? What happens when we ignore or do not process our feelings on an individual, small, or societal level over many generations and many generations to come? If energy can neither be created nor destroyed, energy can only be transferred or changed from one form to another. What do they transmute into? Where do they go? So we're going to show you a clip of our film, Battle of Reality.
Me? Do you understand the depth of what I've been feeling recently? Of course, I'm always following the focus of your eyes. Don't worry, I have all your data inside me. If you've been overthinking, I can always up your likes if you like. That usually makes you feel better. No, thank you. It's so temporary. I always feel worse later. But I can solve your problem now. I can put the world into categories. That really helps you to understand what's going on in your mind. But that's not true. You confuse my reality like a mirage. We are suffering. I'm sorry, Me. I'm going to have to leave you for all.
Okay. Oh, okay. So, when we build a metaverse, who are we building it for? What is it connecting us to? Is it made by humans or AI, or for humans or AI? Or is it for the natural world and other species? Do we want the experience of the metaverse to expand the experience of being human? Can the metaverse help us go beyond our Umwelt? Ethologists have adopted the word Umwelt, a German word for environment, to denote an organism's unique sensory world. A world as it is experienced by a particular organism. It is a tiny slice of reality that we experience. In fact, what we see is less than a 10 trillionth of what is out there. For example, jewel beetles can sense a fire that is as far away as 50 miles through detection infrared, and catfish have magnified taste as they possess taste buds externally so that they can taste their potential prey in all directions.
Do you remember last week we occupied different bodies? What did we learn?
Well, on the first day, we learned about deprived senses, what it was like to be blind.
What did you learn from that, O?
I learned words differently, to listen,
What else?
to count my steps and really follow my memory.
Oh, this was a simulation to help you have a deeper understanding of your senses. You know, I cannot teach you what it's like to be blind. Often when someone loses a part of their senses, what affects them is not the vision loss itself, but it's the change.
Change.
One day your reality will fall from your feet, and your roots will not be on the same ground. You will suffer, and then you will move towards the sun, finding new connections. This is called wisdom.
Something is going to happen, Mommy.
I spread out, and I come back. Okay, you can decide the body we will occupy. Are you excited?
Yes, Mommy. Although being blind made me feel lost, I used to feel the kind of strength which I don't think I've had that feeling before. So I want to be like a hammerhead shark, because they cannot see, but they can smell electricity and sense electric fields.
I would have never thought about that, though.
Okay, so Jaak Panksepp, a neuroscientist, said, if we begin to understand the emotions of other animals, I think we'll begin to understand our own emotions. If our feelings are the nearby beginnings of all human endeavour, yet our human endeavour is not understood or shared by only humans, what does this mean when we are building a metaverse? When we are building our metaverse, we like to view it as an interconnected organic structure. It has no borders. It is infinitely interconnected, just like mycelium. So, organic gaming experiences. Our metaverse is organic. When creating a gaming experience, we want to consider the whole body, our whole consciousness, one that can feel with all the senses. We want to incorporate the wisdom of nature and the body into it. Most technology tools and content places decision-making, logic, language as the way we create and navigate reality, which is favorable to the newest part of our brain, the neocortex. However, we also have the ancient wisdom and structure of our reptilian brain, which regulated our body, our hearts, rate, breathing, body temperature, and balance, which holds our instincts and subconscious. Our limbic brain houses our emotions, recording our memories and behavior. We are interested in creating emancipatory organic technologies and gaming experiences that activate and include the wisdom of our whole body. And then just the last thing is just that this is going back to the haptic womb, and that we're kind of not only looking at creating, like, as you've seen in the films, like actually imagining what goes inside the metaverse, the stories to be told, the avatars, but also the technology to get us there. So the womb that we created recently, it's the audience are invited to put on the wearable haptic womb. Once they're plugged in, they would experience the sound, frequencies, and vibrations of different animals that all communicate through ultrasound. These animals are bats, dolphins, whales, tarsiers, moths, frogs, rats, moths. Oh, moths again. I don't know how to say this one.
Katydids, I think.
Crickets, grasshoppers, and oilbirds. This meta womb becomes an empathy and consciousness device used to connect to the unknown of all things we don't always understand. We also have been talking a lot about how it feels like an observational tool. It really activates our instinctual and emotional nature. The piece explores sensory addition from research into neuroscientist Paul Bacchi-Rita, who discovered that due to the neuroplasticity in our brains, there is a potential to rewire our senses. The meta room explores how we can use technology to create first-hand simulations of other consciousness and how we can create future wearable technology for holistic experiences. So if you imagine like wearing a VR, the VR feels very much like a wearable that's not, the VR doesn't actually physically feel like your eyes. It's like when you're seeing the content, sometimes you can get lost, but it doesn't physically feel like it's part of you. Whereas the wearable haptic womb, it's silicone based, and it feels, and the way that it's on you, it feels like it's like part of your body. And that's a very different way of experiencing technology. We want to keep developing, so we just kind of want to keep developing these kinds of technologies and experiences because we believe there's a huge gap in the way that, or the perspective of the way that we create future technologies to get us to the metaverse. And I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think Andreas has just said that we have to come to an end. But
sorry, I thought there was an end slide.
I think there is. I think it's the next one. I think if we'd had a bit more time, we would have shown those clips. But anyway, thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry for the lack of time, but maybe there will be time to discuss further aspects of your work in Gather. I guess this is where you will head now. So the audience can find Tanya and Hana on Gather for a Q&A round. Just follow Keiken Collective on Gather. Und der Hinweis auch nochmal auf Deutsch für die Fragerunde steht Keiken Collective auf Gather zur Verfügung. Dafür auf Gather einfach Keiken folgen. Und hier auf der Bühne, da geht es jetzt um 15 Uhr gleich weiter mit dem Input-Talk von Tamiko Thiel, Lend Me Your Face, theme and variations of a deepfake AI artwork. Ein Vortrag, der thematisch ein bisschen abweicht von diesem Lab, weil er eigentlich beim ersten HoloLab stattfinden sollte, aber verschoben werden musste. Umso schöner, dass das jetzt heute klappt. Und wir sehen uns dann um 16:15 Uhr wieder für eine Schlussrunde und ein Meet the Team. Dafür nochmal der Hinweis zur Umfrage, die ja zu den HoloLabs im Chat verlinkt ist und die dazu dient, die Labs auch weiterzuentwickeln und die wir dann in der Runde später auch zumindest kurz auswerten wollen. Ja, bis dahin wünsche ich weiterhin gute Impulse und Gespräche auf Gather, wo Sie ja auch nach wie vor immer noch auf Schatzsuche gehen können. Wir sehen uns dann später um 16:15 Uhr. Bis dahin. Tschüss.